Good evening VC or anyone who might find themselves watching this video. So this will be a mixed bag. I pulled some records from my shelf in order to pay tribute to a newly deceased favorite musician of mine. And I've pulled 3 wonderful psych albums as sort of a thread response to Vinyl Richie's top 20 psych albums. I found it too difficult to make a list, so I just decided to pull the best psych album from Denmark, the best psych album from Sweden, and what I find is the best psych album from Norway. And I've shown those before in earlier videos, but never mind. I also want to give a shout out to a fairly new reissue label from Norway. So, and of course, some recent finds, because I've been doing my fair share of record buying as usual, so I got something new to show as well. And it's Friday, cracked open a beer, so cheers! So let's start with the best psych from Scandinavia. And what we are listening to in the background is what I find the best, actually the best all-time Danish release ever. No genre specific, but this is about psych, so for me the best Danish psych album ever is Culpeper'sorchard's first and self-titled album from 1971. And this is a wonderful blend of some folk music elements, some country elements, vaguely, and a lot of psych and dashes of prog. So a wonderful, wonderful blend. Culpeper'sorchard were, as I said, a Danish band, but they were led by Svein Nicklin, who was an English singer-songwriter who had a career from the mid-60s in another folk outfit, and decided to start this psych prog band. You really need to check out this album, Culpeper'sorchard. Their second album, called Second Sight, is good as well, but it doesn't come close to this in my opinion. And their third and fourth, especially the fourth album, that's just stay away from that one. But this, my god. So if the YouTube copyright police doesn't pull this video down, perhaps you will hear some of it in the background. Well, let's go over to Sweden, my neighboring country, and it was a tough choice, but I had to pick Persson Sound and the box set that was released in 2010 by Subliminal Records. And these are actually recordings from 1967 and 1968, which were never released, but they were broadcast on Swedish radio. So the sound quality is quite good. Persson Sound was a highly experimental psychedelic quintet, and there are elements of avant-garde, droning, and of course this is as trippy as it gets. Perhaps you have heard about the Baby Grandmothers, who were quite experimental as well, but this is way out and fantastic. 3 albums in one box set. This is a Swedish psych bonanza, so I think this is still available. Go get it. You won't regret it. Yes. Then let's go to my own country, and in my opinion the best psych album from Norway, and perhaps one of the very few psych albums from Norway, is the Dreams Only album called Get Dreamy, and this was released in 1967. The lineup here consists of one to be very great guitar player, Terje Rypdal. In fact, he's there. And I think it was about 20 years old when this was released, but this is just a marvelous gem, psychedelic gem, from the cover to the contents. And the rumors say that Jimi Hendrix was sent a copy of this album, and a few years back, when some items from his estate was sold, including his record collection, they found a beat-up copy of this album, so he had kept it and cherished it, and I can see why. So, if you're into Terje Rypdal and you're into psychedelic rock and want to explore the Norwegian psych scene, this is where you should start. And a shout out to the reissue label. I of course have the original, but I had to get this reissue, which was released in January, and the label is called Round 2. And it's safe to say that you can buy anything Round 2 reissues, because the reissues are of high quality, remastered recordings, high quality printing and restored artwork. And they come with this sort of OB strip like information strip here, which of course can be removed. I'm not a big fan of OB strips myself, but this is still in shrink. And giving a shout out to Round 2, I just have to show this, their recent output, which is a reissue of Terje Rypdal's first solo album from the year after Get Dreamy, from 1968. As you perhaps know, Terje Rypdal just celebrated his 70th birthday, and this was released just around, well, I think it was 25th of August, so this is a fresh reissue, and the originals sell for over $1,000, so I strongly recommend you, if you want to check out Terje Rypdal's early career, do pounce on this reissue because it's great. The first 200 copies, I think, are on purple vinyl, if that matters, but it's heavy vinyl, excellent sounding pressing, with interesting liner notes about the recording and a bit of bio on Terje Rypdal himself. So, Round 2, a wonderful Norwegian reissue label. Go get this while it's in stock. Well, that takes care of the best psych albums from Norway, and a plug for Round 2. So, let's pay tribute to a wonderful musician who just, I think it was yesterday, who passed away. And it's the legendary drummer, actor and TV presenter Janne Carlsson. Let's see if we can find a photo of him. There he is behind the drum kit. Janne Carlsson, of course, came into prominence as a jazz rock psych drummer in the duo, the psychedelic blues jazz rock duo Hansson Karlsson, and they released 3 albums from 1967 to 1969. This is their first album called Monument, and the year after they released a live album called Rex. All these are, by the way, original Polydor issues, for those who are into such details. And the third and last album was released in 1969, and I've shown all these before. It was called Man at the Moon, which is perhaps their most psychedelic effort before they disbanded. Of course, Bo Hansson went on to fame and fortune with his Lord of the Rings album from 1971, and Janne Carlsson participated in numerous recordings for other artists, and also had a career within television as a TV presenter and also a Swedish movie actor. But my God, Janne Carlsson was a fantastic, skillful jazz rock drummer, and it was sad to read that he had passed away. But he was, I think, he was 80 or 81, so he lived a long life. But rest in peace, Janne Carlsson. Do check out Hansson Karlsson if you haven't heard about them. They have some international acclaim because they jammed with Jimi Hendrix in 1967, and Jimmy, of course, dug one of their tunes called Tax Free and included that in his live set, and even recorded a version which was released on the War Heroes album after Jimmy had passed away. But Hansson Karlsson, and rest in peace, Janne Carlsson. Over to my recent finds. A shout out to the metal theologian Aaron once again, because of his video on Mexican hard rock, and I tracked down a couple of his suggestions, such as El Amor and the album En Vivo, of course a reissue, and this is fantastic, heavy, progressive, psychedelic Mexican rock with overdubbed audience noises and lo-fi sounds. If you like to check out the Mexican scene, this is a must, and of course the Revolución de la Emiliano Zapata and their 2 albums. So thanks Aaron for recommending that one. I had a blast listening to it. I also found a reissue of El Ritual and the self-titled album. I think this is a mid-80s reissue with an alternate cover art to the original. But man, those originals are impossible to find. At least for the price range I'm in. But this reissue will do, and this is also a great album. El Ritual and El Amor. Starting my explorations into Mexican heavy, progressive and psych rock. Well, from Mexico to Hungary, found Omega's second album from when they were called Omega Red Star, and I won't try to even pronounce the title. You can read it for yourself. And this is an, I think it's a second issue on the Qualiton label. I believe the first issue is supposed to have an orange label. But Omega Red Star, who later turned into simply Omega, were a wonderful, first of all, psychedelic Hungarian band, and turned into more heavy, progressive rock. They moved to Germany, so you could perhaps define them as krautrock, Hungarian krautrock. Excellent, excellent, trippy. Now I found, I believe it's Magma's third album, called Mécanique Destructive Commando. and Christian Vander's universe is as usual quite absurd and wonderful. So if you know Magma, you sure know this album. If not, do check it out if you like absurd progressive jazz rock. They sing in an entirely Christian Vander constructed language, which of course adds to the mysticism. Wonderful. A bit of British folk, the Woods Band. I didn't know too much about this from before, but it's a wonderful record. Of course, low key, mellow, in the vein such as Trees, better than Fairport Convention in my ears, and on the wonderful label called Greenwich Gramophone Company, a very obscure label, which was a subdivision to Decca. So, a wonderful English folk album if you're into folk. I even found more obscure things here. This is a progressive band called Phoenix from Romania. I believe it's called in English, Romania. And this is from the 70s, but this is a reissue from the early 90s, but it looks like it's from the 60s or 70s, even though it was printed in, I think, 1992. But Phoenix, and this is their second album from, I think it's from 76. Great hard rock from Romania. Romania. Land of Dracula, I think. Or am I talking out of my ass again? I often tend to talk out of my ass doing these videos. A nice reissue on the Shadows label of the only album from the Icelandic band Oddmen. A solid heavyweight reissue. And Oddmen were a progressive rock band from Iceland, one of the very few. A solid album, but I wouldn't shell out £1,000 or dollars for the original. So this Shadows reissue will do. It has its great moments and some fillers, I think. Budgie Squawk, 2 cheapo reissues. For some reason I didn't have these from before. And we're down to the last 2. An American version, a second issue of Tomorrow, the band which I think launched Steve Howe's recording career. It's an okay psych album. I wouldn't want to spend too much money on this. It certainly has its moments, but also some novelty moments. So I think this US issue will do for me. Quite cheap. And let's end with the grail of mine. A fairly recent pickup and a nice addition to my ore collection. It's Ashra Temple's 4th album. Yes, 4th album called Join In. And Klaus Schulze rejoined the band for this session, which consists of 2 side-long tracks, Freak and Roll and Yen Sights. And this is way up there in quality as the first album. So this and the first album are my 2 Ashra Temple favorites. The original Ore label. Do check out Join In by Ashra Temple if you haven't done so. I think the first 4 albums are quite extraordinary in the space rock genre from Germany, often simply referred to as krautrock. This is Manuel Götzing's guitar playing is magnificent, and Klaus Schulze is all over the place on the drums on the first side, and he plays a lot of the synthesizers on the B side. Wonderful, wonderful album. Well, that was all I had planned to show you, and Culpeper's Orchard just finished side A, so I will flip the record, drink some more beer, and leave you to your own business. So thanks for watching. Please do comment, push the like or dislike button, or subscribe if you haven't done so. Yes, thanks for now. See you later.